I need a second.
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 Thank you. Roll call vote, Ms. Strong,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Sigler.
Aye.
Mr. Beck,
Aye.
Mr. Alligood,
Aye.
Mayor Friedman,
Aye.
and I vote aye. And the time is 7:45, and we are adjourned from the closed meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander, and thank you, members of the public, for your patience and indulgence with the items that we took care of in closed meeting. I'll report to you, it was very productive. We're not taking any action on either of the briefings this evening, but very productive time. And again, thank you for your patience. The next item on the agenda is presentations, and I'd like to invite Eric Wilson of the Rockbridge Historical Society for a brief presentation. And on deck, we will have Alexia Smith with the Brushy Hills presentation. And for those of you who are here for school board, it'll be, if you haven't seen on the agenda, item 7.4. Got a few things, but it shouldn't be too terribly long. Gur.
Do quick gift opening on this. This is a holiday themed one, peeled away from Pearl Harbor Day. We'll give a salute to that. Back, I figured with the season here, Advent underway, Hanukkah begins tomorrow night, Christmas and Kwanzaa. Again, we'd look at a few sort of civic dimensions of holidays here. So yes, okay, pictures are up. Drew some of these from a calendar that Rockbridge Historical Society produced in 89, 50th anniversary, and has the nice thing of, on this day and all sorts of things. And so in December, I pinched a few different events that we can use to kind of mark what different ways in this town, publicly, collectively, have Christmas parades, civic gatherings come together. So you see here a picture from the 60s outside the Rockbridge Bank, the Southern Inn. And here are a few of these for your city council kind of business, right? Are we going to put up colored lights or not? And who's going to pay for it, right? Are we closing a two-way street or one? I mean, this is how business gets done. I was asking, I was not at the parade last Friday, but I doubt we had 10 to 12,000 people there. It's pretty remarkable in 1959 to have what then would have been half the county there, and that's just an interesting thing to see, along with the serial rebranding that you get of Old Fashioned Christmas and Holiday in Lexington, White and Green, or other things. But a good record. You can see here some of that garlanding, again in different spirits. I did want to note two moments with the Christmas Baskets program. A lot of you are involved with. Some of you will probably be helping with that on Saturday. A lot of our school children and students will be there. This is a picture from the first rollout there. I'd love to find out who any of those figures were, kids or Santa alike, but still very robust part of our community and traditions here. And the USS Rockbridge, we have a range of material from USS Rockbridge doing its own part from afar. So that just three images of collections and then I'll close that tell different stories. So this is a handkerchief. Sometimes families have particular objects, traditions they have. This object comes from the surplus, the clerical deckings of Rector Pendleton. And in 1869, it was bought at the Grace Church Bazaar. Again, another continued tradition here. The fact that it has ties to the church, to the Lee family, to the Tompkins family, who became the founding librarian of our organization, is interesting. But I really am taken by the fact that tradition of gift giving comes from there. And we found out later from descendants that because of this, that descendants of this family, at least the gentlemen in these families, give handkerchiefs to each other each year, and it traces back to this particular object. This is a piece of V mail, victory mail, World War II. So I don't know if you've seen these before. They come in different flavors. The image is what pre-printed. Right? A lot of people are sending, Santa on the gondola home. But this is from a Lexington native who had just been wounded in Anzio, but he is writing to Miss May Smith. You can see her address up there. When he gets home, what does he say there? I've asked Santa to bring you my love. That's his. Okay, that's not the U.S. Army writing that part. And he's heavily wounded, comes back. They've married. They live their life here. They're two bridging certain kinds of civic service and holiday observance and love. And this, I'm just going to tease you till the next time. Looks like a Christmas flag, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Ain't a Christmas flag. I thought it was. Some of you kind of maybe already know what this is, and I will come back to it a different time. It actually ties into some other things, but this will be the holiday gift that has to stay wrapped and drive everyone nuts for a little bit. But thank you for all you do for the city throughout the year, not just holiday tide. Best wishes to you and yours.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for your leadership at Rockbridge Historical Society and for giving us a minute in history to reflect on those that came before us that set such a sound foundation for us to be productive and enjoy the beauties of our beautiful city. Thank you. Enjoy the holidays. Next, I'd like to invite up Alexia Smith. Alexia, welcome. How are our friends at the Brushy Hill? And I'll invite you to pull the microphone down so that we can be sure to hear you.
Thank you for having me and good evening. I'm here to tell you what's been going on out in the Brushy Hills Preserve and what the Friends of Brushy Hills have been up to. A little bit of this will be somewhat of a review. What we've been up to since we started working in the year 2000. We've made a 14-mile trail system. We have an information kiosk that we put together, trail maps that we try to keep updated. We put out educational materials, invasive plant control. We sponsor hikes and nature walks. And this year we've done something called the tree loop, which I'll come back to. We're quite excited about. And that's a picture of the historic Connor Spring where the trails begin. That's the main trailhead out there. Let's see if I can do this. The Brushy Hills Preserve is dedicated to passive recreation, as it's usually called, which places a minimal stress on the preserve's ecosystem, because we're very concerned with the health of the forest. It's a good native forest with many species of plants. So hiking, running, mountain biking, as you can see here. And I want to stress a bit this evening the invasive plants control work that we've been doing for 10 years now, and it's made a really big difference in the health of the forest there. So here's a before and after a couple of pictures. On the left, that's David Rocher, who's here this evening, mowing some invasive stilt grass, which will get hold just anywhere it can. And then let's see, 5 years later, there's the same stretch of trail all filled in with native plants. So that's been, one of the great rewards of that work, which has had literally, over 10,000 hours of volunteer work, many of them by David himself and other volunteers. So I thought I'd show you just a few of what takes the place of stilt grass. Just quickly give you an idea. One of the first plants to come up in the early spring. And you might notice the ginger in the middle of the top there. Can you see the flower, the little red, purple red flower? That's a wild ginger. Other things that have gone on in this year, as usual, we've sponsored walks, a couple of tree walks, a really interesting spring ecology, what happens in the spring in the woods, a geology and archaeology talk by a couple of Washington and Lee professors. And I think it was about 40 people showed up for that, which prompted us to decide it would be better to have people register ahead of time. But it's wonderful to get that much interest. We've started and adopt a trail system for trail maintenance, which is something that's an ongoing work out there. And then other groups have sponsored walks or events, particularly the Native Plant Society, the local chapter, does now a self-guided flower walk, which is very popular. And we've had a researcher this year. We haven't heard how it all came out yet, but a master's student put out a miniature, what do you call it, a microphone to pick up bat sounds to see which species of bats were here. Oops. So here's the tree loop. There's a half-mile loop, trail loop with 26, is it? Yes, 26 trees with these specially designed labels that don't hurt the tree. They have little springs on them so that as the tree grows, you can adjust the label and the tree won't be hurt. And there's a QR code which links to web pages, each one with lots of information on the tree. We got a great compliment from a biology professor from WNL saying how good our information was, which made us sigh with relief and happiness that it took a lot of time, consulting lots of sources to make sure we had good information, and also that it would be legible, understandable to ordinary people like us. And it's been a hit so far. People like it, and we think it's a great new attraction. Here are our big numbers. The really big number is the volunteer hours. And that's how we get away with doing some things on not a whole lot of money. Although by our standards, this was a big income year. I'm looking back at 2022 because we don't have the current year's numbers yet. The Nasty Nine Trail Run always gives us a donation of part of their income, and expenses were higher than they sometimes are. The tree labels, which are of very high quality, are expensive, and the tree loop is just the beginning, really, of a bigger project that we'd like to, with over time, to include other species of trees scattered around the preserve so that you can come across them as you're hiking, or you can make a point of going to see them. And I like to end. Oh, there's one thing I didn't include here that I would like to mention, and that is that Patrick Madigan has set up quarterly meetings with the Friends of Brushy Hills and the Friends of Woods Creek, which I think is going to be really good, so that we further understand each other's cultures and get to know what's coming up and how we can not get in each other's way, and on the contrary, help each other out. He's really wonderful to work with. Been very good to us. So I'd like to end, as I did last year, reminding us of the ecosystem services that a woods provides, recreation, of course, health benefits, both mental and physical, biodiversity support, and soil and water conservation, and of course, carbon storage. There's lots of attempts to plant more trees, but it's even better to save the ones we've got. So, and I thank you very much. And if you have questions, I'd be glad to try and answer them.
Members of council have any questions for Alexia? Mr. Smith?
Quick question. I know the Friends of the Chessie Trail have a laser counter to gauge participation of the trail. Have y'all do something like that, or how are you gauging attendance at a Brushy? Because and I ask partly because of COVID. During COVID, I spent a lot of time out there.
Yes.
Just getting out of the house and getting fresh air that you're contained by walls. So I guess the question is, I imagine you saw a big spike
We did.
in pressure as a
Yes.
result of COVID. Has it maintained? Has it dropped?
It's dropped somewhat, but it's definitely got a boost that's also staying, and we do not have numbers. It'd be a little tricky because, well, it would require quite a few counters, because as well as the main trailhead, there are two other places with
Right.
minimal parking, but people do use those as well.
I guess you could use, the
So-
two main entrances sort of as a benchmark and
Yes. Yeah, you could do
get
that.
an idea if it's going up or down. Just
Oh.
the thought. But it's a
Thank you.
great asset. I love going out there with my dog, and I think I said the last time you heard to David, accolades to him for as much volunteer time as he puts out there,
Yes. Yeah,
tackling the invasives and leading that charge.
and with many other contributions as well. He's amazing. He knows trees very well, and he seems to me to be able to take out just about anything and learn how to do it. So Brushy Hills is lucky to have him.
Brushy Hills and our entire community. Thank you for your kind words for Patrick Madigan. We hear that frequently, the great job that he's doing as our Public Works Director. So thank you for reinforcing that. But I know I speak for all of council and our community, thanking you for your time and passion for the trails and all the things that you do to keep Brushy Hill as significant and special as it is. It is a beautiful haven for folks to escape the madness very, very close to home. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Excellent. Yeah, 14 miles of trail is fantastic. It give people an opportunity to exercise and all the amenities that you mentioned. Again, thank you so much for your work and talents, and thank you for being with us this evening. Next item on our agenda is 7.1, the continued public hearing for the consideration of the ADU. Instead of if there is anyone who would like to speak to this issue, would welcome that as we continue this public hearing. And also don't anticipate any action, but some additional questions from council. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to the amendment to the zoning allowing accessory dwelling units? Seeing no one, I will open it to city council for questions.
I just wanted to give council something to think about and the community too, so that we get some input on it. But it goes back to some of David's questions on short-term rentals. The more we started to look at it, it was not as clear cut as Planning Commission had thought. We were expecting to basically use our same short-term rental rules for an ADU. And for our current short-term rentals, you have to live in the property that you're renting. And what is a little bit different with the ADU is that you have your primary dwelling unit, and then the ADU is a completely separate dwelling unit, whether it's attached or detached. So a question for council and the community to respond on is, if the property owner is in one of the dwellings, can they rent the other dwelling as a type A or a type B rental? Meaning, is it for 45 days or 104 days if they are not in that property while it's being rented. And so that goes for both an attached and a detached. And is that different than what perhaps we're doing now for the attached? It won't be any different we don't allow a detached as it is right now. So that's something new, but we want to make sure that we're not doing something differently now than what we are doing for an attached apartment. So something to keep in mind. I just wanted you to ruminate about that. And I also want to ask a question to Jim. Planning Commission had suggested that we not require utility meters, including a water meter. David pointed out it's in our code that that it has to have a water meter if you're building a new ADU. Jim's recommendation is as well that you should have a water meter, and whether it's attached or detached. Is that correct, Jim? Is that fair to say?
Well, my recommendation was that you ask staff to study it. I do believe that every housing unit typically pays for the water and has a water meter and is a customer. And if you don't do this for the ADU, they are actually getting the service for less, if you will, and not paying their share. So there's a financial aspect of this conversation that I look at our utility revenues and I feel that we are always in need of more. So it seems relevant that they should pay their share just like every other customer. So there's a meter cost to put a meter in. There's a minimum cost that is billed to every meter for a particular use of water or volume of water, whether you use it or not. And everyone pays that at this point. If the ADU is vacant for some period of time, they wouldn't be charged at all. Basically, they come under the umbrella of the main house and they pay nothing.
Yeah.
So
So
it
it's really
doesn't
that
quite-
minimum cost that you're talking about, because the meter,
Yeah.
that's kind of a fee that covers itself, but it's that minimum
Right.
usage.
Yeah, minimum usage that there should be some support of the system similar to
Yeah.
every other customer.
Theoretically, if you added 100 new homes, they would all have a new water meter
Mhm.
and be a customer of the utility. If you added 100 ADUs, could be that none of them become new customers if they're on the existing property and connect to the existing part. So as I perceive Jim's comments, we want to pick up those extra 100 customers that are now ADUs as opposed to primary dwelling units.
Right. But the only real loss in revenue is you're not getting that minimum, because the meter, we're not doing a big markup on the meter, I
Correct.
assume. And yeah, it's
Yeah,
just the
yeah, there's the-
minimum.
Yeah, to install a meter is not, but we have minimum
Right.
for having an account. If you don't have an account, that yeah.
So I think that's two things that council, the short-term rental, what we're looking for in that, the water meter issue, and then Nick had brought up, we only allow 2 people. Do you make that 3? So,
And just, I would like to comment on that. I do feel actually very strongly that up to 4 people should be allowed in the accessory dwelling units. Now, I do think there's different ways to potentially get at that result. And actually, I do have a question or maybe not a question, but just a statute to maybe point out to legal counsel. It's Virginia Code Section 36-105.4, occupancy standards for residential dwelling units. Now, I don't know that this directly applies to us, but it's just, I'm going to read an excerpt from it. The owner or managing agent of a residential dwelling unit may develop and implement occupancy standards restricting the maximum number of occupants permitted to occupy a dwelling unit to 2 persons per bedroom, which is presumed to be reasonable. And that's just an excerpt. And again, that may not be directly on point for us, but one way to get at this may be to allow for 4 people to occupy accessory dwelling units. If there's 2 bedrooms, and do it 5-bedroom, so that's just one thought about, one strategy we might employ. But I do think that it's important to give families the same opportunity as single individuals or couples to possibly live in these what may be more affordable housing units based on their size. So I think that we should find a way to make this available to more citizens and not just some.
Would they have to be related?
I think that if we have existing, and this can, be reviewed by legal counsel, but if we have existing walls on the books, I don't know that allowing for 4 people in the accessory dwelling units would allow for any change. Like if you apply our other legal codes, that would necessarily be a change. I don't know that we have to, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. And the other thing I was going to say too is, even from an economic tourism perspective, there's times where all the hotels get booked up, and, it might help to have a few extra places where a family could stay, where maybe that family, wouldn't have come to visit and spend their tourism dollars here either. So I do think that there's multiple reasons we should consider expanding occupancy to 4 people.
But just know that that example you gave is different. That's a short-term rental, which the rules can be different than living in an ADU. Just,
That's true.
yeah,
But
because we do actually, the short-term rental rules are 2 people per, max of 2 people per bedroom.
max, yeah. And then that would be in line with,
If you have the adequate parking.
but
Parking's gonna be the limiting
that, just
factor.
saying that could also be in line with what exists if it's 2 people per bedroom, if we went that route, to up to 4 people.
Okay, just know planning commission only considered up to 3, but we can talk about 4.
Thank you.
It is for on the table for debate and discussion. And since we're just looking at discussion tonight, that can come in. If there isn't a consensus from council, then we may stick with the language we have, but encourage people to provide their input as we have this healthy and meaningful discussion. Any other comments or questions on ADUs while we wait for legal counsel and staff to finalize? Again, I would point out a great deal of appreciation to Mr. Ziegler's pointing out those issues that none of us saw, and looking at the ADUs and the conflict and the complexities with short-term rental usage by people with those properties. And again, we will continue this public hearing until our next meeting on the 21st. And moving along to item 7.2, public hearing on and consideration of a request from Maxmark Homes. I'll call on Arnie to update us on this progress. Welcome, Arnie.
Good evening to you all. You're being asked to undo what you did in August. So the plan unit development is the plan for Weatherburn. And lot 21, as you'll see the photograph and also on the plan on the first page of your staff report, that's the focus. Lot 21 has a retaining wall on it. It's going to be difficult to develop as another lot for a house, or sorry, developed for a lot, but to put a house on it. The owner of the property thought that he had an agreement with the people on the left and the right. So they came in the summertime, went through planning commission, went through you for approval. Lot 21 was split so that half of it could be eventually sold to the owner of lot 20, and the other half to be sold to the owner of lot 22. That fell through. So they're now back asking for lot 21 to be recreated. And that would be a good idea because fortunately, we did not change the subdivision plat. So right now we still have a subdivision plat with lot 21 because that didn't change. And it's beneficial to have those 2 things match up because they must. So you are being requested to allow lot 21 to exist again.
Thank you, Arnie.
One thing maybe that I should add, I just recalled, planning commission had an extra little whereas or requirement in their recommendation for approval that it be contingent on making Chamberlain Loop one way with the installation of all appropriate signage. That has occurred. They've marked the pavement. They did a final top coat, and the one-way sign, the do not enter signs, and the stop sign and stop bar have been put in. So you do not need to include additional language for making Chamberlain Loop one way because that has already been accomplished. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Arnie. Members of council have any questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Arnie. I'd like to open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone who would like to speak to this issue. Seeing no one interested in speaking to this issue, I'd like to close the public hearing at 8:15 and ask for council's consideration.
I move to approve an amendment to the Weatherburn Planned Unit Development Application PUD 2023-02 as presented by the applicant and with the one applicant proffered condition, which is development of the subject property shall be in accordance with the PUD modification plan dated October 17th, 2023, and prepared by Perkins and Orison Incorporated.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Alligood?
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler?
Aye.
Ms. Strawn?
Aye.
Mr. Betts?
Aye.
Ms. Alexander?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, and good work undoing what we did in August. Thank you, Arnie. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing and consideration of ordinance 2023-14 that incorporates the budget amendments for first quarter of fiscal year 2024. I'll call on Finance Director Bell. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here tonight to request council adopt ordinance 2023-14, which incorporates the budget amendments for the first quarter of FY24. We previewed this request at the November 2nd meeting when I presented the first quarter financials. The request includes recommendations for the use of the FY23 surplus and carryovers for projects not completed in FY23. And at the beginning of the meeting, I handed you a replacement page for the packet that went out to council on Friday. It's the corrected page on number 46 of 98 in the packet. And Janie has updated the website already as well for anybody looking there. So the only change I've made to the carryovers from the version that I presented to you on November 2nd is the highlighted portion. I originally included $41,738 for upfits to the fire department SUVs as part of the carryovers. However, when I went back and looked through our expenditures in FY23, the savings that we realized by not replacing the utility 9 fire vehicle, even though it was budgeted, so essentially we didn't spend that money, is enough to cover the excess we needed for the upfits on the 2 SUVs we did buy. So I changed that request to a carryover rather than an appropriation from the surplus. Since we've already discussed these at the prior meeting, I won't bore you by reading line by line all of my requests, but I am more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jen. Members of council have any questions regarding? Not? Thank you, ma'am. This time I'd like to open the public hearing regarding the first quarter of fiscal year 2024. And is there anyone here who would like to speak to this item? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing at 8:18 and ask for council's consideration.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2023-14 as presented.
Second.
Have a motion, a second, any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
A motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Jen, for counting the beans and presenting them well. Now we have the opportunity to receive public comment on applications for one school board term beginning January 1st, 2024 and serving through June 30 of 2025. Council members, and AIR sent you one document with a lot of questions and detail, and tonight I put one at your place. And if it pleases you all, or there are no objections, we can utilize and ask the questions of each of the candidates. We have 3 candidates or applicants, Joey Bates, Chris Gavalier, Brendan Perry, who are all with us this evening. And we look forward to, first, thank you for making application to be on our school board. We're grateful for you making time to be with us tonight, and we have a series of questions we'd like to ask you as we vet. And I'll remind you, if you're you probably got received information. We interview this evening. We make no decisions tonight. We wait until by law the 21st will be our next meeting, and after waiting the 14 days, City Council will make their selection for serving on the school board. And with that, I'll say again, we're extremely grateful very qualified candidates, and we're very appreciative of you having the commitment and dedication to our school system and to our community. With that, there's no good way or perfect way to decide who goes first. So I randomly have chosen to go alphabetically by first name. And with that, Brendan Perry, that makes you number one. So if you'll come on up to the podium, and we have a series of questions that all the council members, and again, thank you for being here. The first question is, what inspired you to present yourself for appointment to the Lexington City School Board? And if you're appointed, what areas of concern or focus would you like to address?
Good question. A personal friend of mine who served on the school board in the past, Molly Fox, asked me if I'd be interested in, and knowing that some of the difficulties the board's currently facing, I thought, yes, this is a job I think I would take seriously, and want to see certain initiatives that are in place, working their way through the system now through to completion.
Terrific. Thank you. Next question will be from Mr. Alligood.
Thank you. Have you ever attended a Lexington City School Board meeting? And what is your opinion of the Lexington City Schools?
I have a very high opinion of Lexington City Schools, which is one reason I'm willing to serve on the board. I have 2 children in the system who loved their experience in the school system. I'm very happy to have such a well qualified staff in such a small town. It's a wonderful place to live. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm missing one of the parts of
The
that
first
question.
part, have you ever attended a city school board meeting?
I have recently.
Brendan, thanks for applying. Since you've got some experience with our schools, and I'm not going to hold you to it, but what would you consider possibly as a couple of the top needs of our school district?
Well, first of mind is the current selection of library and educational materials. The board has approved. I understand the rules or the written modified guidelines, whatever you want to call those. I think implementing those probably would be the next most challenging aspect for the board. Other than that, I'd like to see the school board maybe reach out into the community. I'm personally concerned about some of the trends we have in misinformation that adults are accepting these days. And there may be a role for the school system there.
Thank you.
One of the greatest challenges our students and faculty both face for student success is family support outside the classroom. There is a direct correlation between student achievement and this outside support, especially in the home. Family involvement is known to have a positive effect on academic performance, social skills, attendance, and the likelihood of graduating. How would you increase this support for our students who need it most?
Great question. And unfortunately, when I don't think I'm exquisitely qualified, I would probably look to other members of the board with more experience and offer support.
But as far as getting families involved or to be more active in the school system, I guess is an easier way of.
Right. Well, there's the
raising it.
PTA system we can work through. I'm at a bit of a loss on that one, honestly. Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you.
Good evening. As a member of the Irma Thompson Educators of Color Advisory Committee, working to support our schools in the recruitment of Black and Brown teachers to our 3 school divisions, what do you suggest that the Lexington School Board do could they do to meet this challenge? And if you're appointed, what will you do to promote diversity?
Another very good question. And being an engineer, it's not an area that I do work in regularly, but I'm a fair-minded person and I believe in diversity. I believe in that a diverse group of individuals on any board in any area is extremely valuable. I experienced this in my personal work. The folks who work for me, I see the benefits of having multiple perspectives, people of multiple backgrounds. working with an existing policy and pushing the limits on that policy in the right direction if it needs to be.
Thank you.
Mr. Perry, have you ever taught in a public school, and what are your expectations of our teachers in our public schools now, if you are appointed?
I have not ever taught in a public school, not my background. I have always worked as professional in a professional environment. Expectations for teachers. First of all, I think our teachers are doing an excellent job based on experience of my children. My expectation for teachers is that they stick to accepted guidelines for teaching, that they, on a personal basis, that they are individuals who love teaching, who love to engage with children. Other than that, maintaining their professional credentials and following accepted guidelines.
Thanks.
Community accepted guidelines.
Since you're applying to assist in overseeing the publicly funded schools, which total almost 8.9 million, have you reviewed the budget, and what changes, if any, do you think should be made to it? What role do you believe the budget plays in the operations of our city schools?
Well, nothing happens without spending money. My professional background, I know that very well. I've been responsible for budgets, very large budgets at WNL. I have not reviewed the school system budget, but if I were selected, certainly that'd be one of the first orders of business.
Thank you.
Glad to say that's the end of your interrogation. And we're very grateful for, again, for presenting yourself here tonight. And I'm glad that your children have had a terrific experience with our schools. Thank you.
Frank, I think in the past, we've let the applicant make just a short statement in general, if they had something to say that wasn't covered in the question. So I'm not putting you on the spot, but if you had just a short statement that you wanted to add.
Please, thank you. No, thank you.
I mean, full disclosure, this would be one of my first civil service positions. So it's a little intimidating, honestly, but looking forward to it if I'm chosen.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. And thank you, David. Yes, do want to hear from the applicants, not just response to our questions, but if you have something on your heart or a prepared statement, either way. Chris, I invite you next. Following the alphabet that I learned at Waddell.
The first name was a nice trick.
What inspired you to present yourself for appointment to the Lexington City School Board? And if you're appointed, what areas of concern would you like to address?
I heard that Tim was stepping down. Tim's done a fantastic job. Obviously, I can't replace him, and well, obviously be chair if I am selected. Just seeing a need that we need a new school board member. I understand, and correct me if I have this wrong, and this will be in all likelihood the last selected member, and after this they'll be elected. Is that correct?
One more.
We have one more class of appointed, and then in the fall we'll begin the election.
Gotcha. So I saw several people actually asked if I'd be willing to step up. I have a background in education. I'm involved and concerned about our community, and this seemed like a pretty good fit for my background. So I just saw it as an opportunity of something that I could do and that I wanted to do.
Thank you. Fantastic. Mr. Alligood.
Thank you for applying.
Thank you.
Have you ever attended a Lexington City School Board meeting? And what is your opinion of the Lexington City Schools?
I've attended the last 3, and now I'm stretching my memory. I think I attended one like 15 years ago, but and I can't remember what the circumstances were. So I've at least 3 I've attended, and only really recently. I have a very good opinion of the schools. My son and daughter each went to Waddell, went to the middle school. I was involved with their educations, involved with their the teachers of both those schools. they had excellent experiences. I thought their teachers were wonderful. I worked with them in various ways. It's been a few years now. They're both in their 20s. But I think the schools are great. I think the school board has done a fantastic job getting us through the pandemic. And to my understanding, I don't have all the facts, but I guess this is more impressions I've been given, is that things went well for the Lexington schools during a really tough time, and that's to the credit of the current board, and it's to the credit of the teachers and the students and the parents. So I think things are going well there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, thanks for applying. I won't hold you to it, but what do you consider currently as two of the top needs of our school district?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure. Obviously, there's been some current concerns about the library. My understanding, my impression is frankly, that's now sort of been taken care of effectively. So I'm not coming in with a concern about the library policy. I think my expectation is if I were selected when I come into January, there would be new things coming forward that I personally can't predict what those would be. I'm not coming in with an agenda of my own. I'm going to wait. If I am selected, I'm waiting to see what the problems are. And frankly, I expect things more along the lines of keeping things running well as they already are.
Thank you.
One of the greatest challenges our students and faculty both face for student success is family support outside the classroom. There is a direct correlation between student achievement and this outside support, especially in the home. Family involvement is known to have a positive effect on academic performance, social skills, attendance, and the likelihood of graduating. How would you increase the support for our students who need it most?
I taught public school for 10 years, 8 years in New Jersey, 2 years here up in Harrisonburg, mostly high school, 1 year middle school. And I was a substitute teacher for a year before that. That's the hardest job anyone has ever had. And from personal experience, I know that the students who performed did best in my classes are the ones whose parents were involved. The ones who, if I had a student who was not doing well, I taught full range honors to what was called remedial, which is not a term I think is appropriate, but it was literally called remedial English. The students who were doing best were the ones that I knew if I called that parent, they'd want to talk to me. So making sure that there are open lines between teachers and parents and teachers and, well, parents to the administration. Sometimes I've seen parents in their childhood, in their adolescence, they had a negative experience with school. And it's a tough situation where even if they're not intending to pass on that attitude towards their children, sometimes they accidentally do. That's a tough situation. So making sure that all parents actually feel welcome, that the teachers aren't like seeing them as the enemy or the administration or anything like that, that there's actually really warm, open lines of communication in all directions is, I think, particularly important.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chris.
Hey.
As a member of the Irma Thompson Educators of Color Advisory Committee, working to support our schools in the recruitment of Black and Brown teachers to our 3 school divisions, what do you suggest the Lexington School Board do to help meet this challenge? And if appointed, what will you do to promote diversity?
I know the fund has been in process for a few years now. I think it's fantastic that the local NAACP started that program, still working to bring it to full fruition. But if I understand correctly, I think the number is, well, locally, not just in Lexington schools, but like I think the number of Black teachers has moved from like 0 to 3. So there is some progress, but there needs to be more progress. That's a tough challenge, obviously. I think, and I don't know the avenues of achieving this, but it seems like there has to be more outreach. And I don't have the personal experience to know what those avenues are to attract teachers of color to Lexington, but that's clearly the central issue there. And I would want to explore that further, but I don't have an answer for you right now. But it's a question that's deeply important to me.
I don't think anybody has that crystal ball.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Well, you answered the first part of my question.
Okay.
I've taught in a public school, and What are your expectations of teachers in our schools if you are appointed?
Expectations of the teachers. Having been a teacher in public school, the teachers need some room to move while at the same time being held responsible for achieving certain levels. So it's a tricky dance. I remember when I first came in, or it was actually a couple of years after I was in Virginia, the SOLs were created, and the SOLs were potentially a good idea that weren't necessarily executed effectively. It's a really tricky balancing act. So I would see some teachers not doing a great job, and I would see other teachers excelling. And I don't know what the trick is, because you want to give the innovative teacher room to innovate, and you want to make sure you're holding all of the teachers responsible for at least doing the minimum. And that's a hard balance, and I don't know the magic trick for that. And frankly, that's primarily administrators who are going to be dealing with that, unless the school board directly. But that's something the school board needs to be deeply aware of. And I think my experience in the classroom gives me some insights to that. Or at least I hope so.
Thanks.
Since you're applying to assist in overseeing the publicly funded schools, which total almost 8.9 million, have you reviewed the budget, and what changes, if any, do you think should be made to it? What role do you believe the budget plays in the operation of our city schools?
I have not looked at the budget. I had no idea it was as large as you just named. Obviously, the budget is central, and figuring out exactly the overall price tag and how that divides, given all the various needs that a school district has, the budget is central. And this would be not my area of expertise coming if I'm onto the school board. So this would be the learning curve for me to catch up quickly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Chris, thank you for being with us. Is there anything that you'd like to share with council in addition to your application?
Thank you for the opportunity. And I'm sure you're going to make a good choice. It may or not be me, and that's fine.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. Joey Bates. Who would know J would be the end of the alphabet of applicants? But
when you said you were going alphabetically, I figured I was going first. But Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. What inspired you to present yourself for appointment to the Lexington City School Board? And if you're appointed, what areas of concern would you like to address?
Similar to the other folks, there's people in the community have mentioned it to me. I look at the school as the school has the ability and is the community in and of itself. I mean, I have two kids in Lexington City Schools. One's at 4th grade at Waddell, and the other's 6th grade at Lower Downey. And the school is the lifeblood of the community. It really becomes, at least in the city of Lexington, what we rally around. It's all about the kids. They all run around the streets and go down and have ice cream and watch movies. And that's what Lexington's about. And that's, I'm from here. I'm a Rockbridge County resident that moved away for 20 years and chose to come back. And a large part of the reason I chose to come back and move to the city of Lexington and not home for me, which is BV, is the school system. So for me, I have a vested interest in it. I have two kids that are going to be in it a while. And it's exciting to have that opportunity and look at it and say, hey, you can be a part of formulating what that looks like. I have friends that have worked in the school system. Ms. Camden is a close friend of mine from a long time ago and distant relation. And I have friends that are actually on the school board in BV, and I asked them about it and their thoughts, the good and the bad. And obviously Lexington's very different than Buena Vista, but it is relevant experience in history. And it just struck my interest as, to his point, being a civil servant. Been back 3 years now and feel like the right place for me to start and look at. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Algood.
Thanks for applying. Have you ever attended a Lexington City School Board meeting? And what is your opinion of the Lexington City Schools?
I have not had the pleasure of attending the school board meeting. I do work out of town each week and commute back and forth, but obviously that's not a barrier for that. I haven't. I didn't expect the opportunity to come up. I was pretty excited and intrigued when I found out the way it may change in the future and it'll be elected and all that, which I thought was an interesting difference. And then when it showed up, I said, yeah, I'm going to jump on it, throw my name in the hat. I don't have major concerns today about the school system. It's a large part of why I moved back to Lexington. I can assure you that we moved back during the pandemic. I think that we all are still going to figure out what impact that's had on the kids, not just here in Lexington, but in America. I saw how Lexington handled the pandemic. I also came from Fort Mill, South Carolina. We live just outside Charlotte. We're one of the top public schools that you can get in the state of South Carolina. And I saw how they were starting to handle it. So it was very interesting. It put a lot of pressure on parents and on teachers and on the kids. And I don't think we know what that is. I'm living it firsthand today with mine. So no concerns, more of a, how do you react and overcome what is a gap potentially in that time? And it's maybe a little worse with the young men and women that are in high school than it is elementary and middle school. But I'll know more here in about, another year as my son's going through middle school, which, as we know, is a challenge. So, but no concerns today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joey, thanks for being here. What do you see as the top two needs of our school district now? You've got two kids, so you could even give one at Waddell and one at LDMS if you have one.
I think the needs of all kids are the same right now. I mean, parents send their kids to school where they know they're going to be safe. That's a huge number one concern that everyone has to have. And it's part of why you move back to Lexington. There's resource officers in Fort Mill, and we have great safe school systems. But the first thing you want to know when you send your kids to school in the morning, whether they walk or ride the bus or however they get to school, is that they're going to be safe. And I think after that is providing an environment for learning, where the teachers take results serious, and where there's latitude for them to do what they need to do. And that's teach and instruct with support from the school board, which can be a challenge, I'm sure, when parents get involved in things that go in front of a school board. All things I'd have to learn and sit amongst people who understand it differently than me, but I'm in business. So, I kind of get that piece. But I think that those are the two number one things is safety and a commitment to learning. And I do come back to the gap that potentially exists with the kids and what they went through by not being in school and learning a new way to do what they do, just like I've had to learn by being able to work remote. So I think we're all going through that.
Thank you.
One of the greatest challenges our students and faculty both face for student success is family support outside the classroom. There's a direct correlation between student achievement and this outside support, especially in the home. Family involvement is known to have a positive effect on academic performance, social skills, attendance, and the likelihood of graduating. How would you increase this support for our students who need it most?
I think I come back to it, but I think we were all thrust about March 16th a few years ago into what does it mean to be involved at home with your kid's school? And that was a challenge for a lot of parents. My wife stays home, and it was a challenge for her and for me when we were there. And I went from being out of the office and then home 5 days a week. And luckily I'm pretty good at math and write pretty well. So it worked out, but it was a challenge. But we're a different family, and every family had to react to that differently. But what it did force everyone to do was get involved. That means that muscle is still there, it's still sharp. I think you've got to engage parents. If you have a child who's struggling or is not quite getting, I think the first thing you do is outreach and provide the teachers the support they need to feel like they can do that and be comfortable, and that they've got the backing of not only the school board, but the administration. And then I think then it's just about caring a little bit. I had a number of teachers that wrapped their arms around me over the years and, would give me a book to read or a pat of encouragement. In 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I probably didn't appreciate it, but now I do and I understand it. So I think a little bit of empathy goes a long way, and treating kids not like kids, but like small adults and, the future leaders of our community. So I think you just got to be involved. You got to put your heart into it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello.
As a member of the Irma Thompson Educators of Color Advisory Committee, working to support our schools in the recruitment of Black and Brown teachers to our 3 school divisions, what do you suggest the Lexington School Board could do to help meet this challenge? And if appointed, what will you do to promote diversity?
Number one, I'm unaware of any initiatives or endeavors that the Lexington School Board's already taken on. So I can only tell you what my experience is in the business world. And obviously DE&I has become a very extreme and important part of everyone's business and how we go to market, regardless of what you do for a living. It starts with outreach. It starts with having a goal that makes sense, yet still promotes and puts the best candidate for the job in the role. The key is that, particularly with teachers and with administrators, they're teaching our children, and you have to go very targeted and make that a priority. And if that's got to be a necessary measurement, which it is, you have to put yourself in a position to succeed. So, whether it's got to be through proper recruitment. He's going to bring up the budget question, which I don't know how that impacts it, but everything starts with that. But you've got to offer an environment where that's where people feel comfortable, and the school system needs to be a reflection of the community, and that's a big part of our community. So I think you just have to make it a priority, but then you have to do it the right way, and you have to make sure you're bringing in the top candidates and that you're hiring good people, and then they recruit one another. And the school's a lot like a family. I think that people recruit one another to come to work with them because they're having a good time and they enjoy what they're a part of. So I think it's not just the school board's problem. I think it's everyone's opportunity, and it's bigger than the school system. I mean, every day I work on that at work. It's a challenge. So just have to tackle it head on and make it a priority. Thank you.
Joe, have you ever taught in a public school, and what are your you sort of answered this question? What are your expectations of the teachers in our schools?
I've never taught students at a public school, but I taught a lot of cadets at VMI, and that's public, for 3 or 4 years while I was there on cadre. But no, so I have not had the pleasure of teaching kids, but I can assure you that throughout my career at VMI and Post, I do a lot of teaching every day with young adults fresh out of college and older adults, and I learn every day myself. So I have not done that. I have and continue to build and run high performing, highly effective teams, very well documented. I can send you whatever you want there. And that's what I think being on the school board's about. You're here to create a productive team in an environment where people want to be a part of it, and that they're willing to work hard to be successful, and they know you've got their back. And that's just leadership 101. And being involved with the kids and doing all that's, I think you want to do it or you don't. I've coached and volunteer coach, and probably gonna help a little bit next year maybe, but no, I've not had the pleasure of that by any means. For the teachers, I think they've got to know they've got support. It's not an easy job. It's often a thankless job, where they do it because they love the kids and they love the community. And most of my friends that are teachers actually love one another. It's not the highest paying job. It's sad. My opinion, that's one of our most underpaid positions in the United States, that and law enforcement, and we can get into all that too, right? But the budget comes from the state, and you got to manage the budget to do the best you can. And that's how you retain talent and attract them and recruit. So at some point, it's all got to be about the people, and the people have to want to be there and be a part of what you're trying to accomplish. So.
You already mentioned some of this, but since you're applying to assist in overseeing the publicly funded schools, which total almost 8.9 million, have you reviewed the budget, and what changes, if any, do you think should be made to it? What role do you believe the budget plays in the operations of our city schools?
I have not read the budget. I'm very in tune with budgeting and managing budgets. I'm knee deep in hours right now for the entire company. So I have not read the budget and looked into that. But the budget is what, as I would understand it, probably you inherit from the state. And then you have to put it to work to serve the community and put the money where it goes. And I'm sure you never have enough to do everything that you would like to do or that the community would like you to do. And you're not going to make everyone happy with the decisions you make. And that's part of the burden you bear, whether you're on the council or on the school board. And you have to make the best decision you think for every child, not just one child or yours, but all of them as part of the community. But it is fundamental. You get a number and you've got to make it work. And I don't think you get the luxury of overspending it, but it is very vital. I don't have any recommendations on what to change because I haven't looked at it. And honestly, I would need to get in and learn what is going on, what are the biggest opportunities, and what are the challenges. You hear about the library, you read about things in school, and if you walk around and talk to enough people, everybody has an opinion, and that's kind of fun to listen to too as well, right? But I'd have to get in and learn. But numbers are kind of what I do, so it'd be fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joey, thanks for presenting yourself. Is any message you want to leave council with, or that you wanted to share, something about yourself that you wanted to share that we haven't discussed?
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Like I said, it's good to be back home. It's good to have an opportunity to talk to you about potentially working with the kids in the community and influencing what they're going to do. And regardless if I'm selected or not, I'm going to be involved some way or another. And making sure my kids are on the right side of wrong when they're out in school and they come home and get the support they need. But no, it's good to be back. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Excellent. Thank you for being with us. All three candidates, you put council in a serious quandary as we have one position. And as I indicated previously, they'll make that decision at our December 21st meeting. So, but one of the joys that we've had with the application process as opposed to the elected process is multiple candidates. I hope that in the future we have the same circumstance, but very grateful for your all's desire to be servants of our community. I know just from hearing you speak that many of you do already are active in our community, and thank you for the efforts that you extend out to our children and the rest of our community. And with that, you are most welcome to stay for the remainder of our meeting. But if you would like to go home to your families, you're also welcome to do that. No evaluation on that. But thank you again for being with us and for presenting yourselves. And we'll look forward to following up with you on the 21st. Next item on our agenda is consideration of minutes, and would offer up the things that were in your the minutes that were in your packet. And are there any objections to approving the minutes as presented? Hearing none, they are approved. Next item on our agenda is citizens' remarks and comments. And because we were a little bit different opening up, people may not have had an opportunity to sign up to speak, but is there anyone who would like to address council this evening? Fred, step right on up. If you could please state your name and address for the record. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. Give me the opportunity. So my name is Fred Reed. I live at 700 Plunkett Street in the city. And my comments are regarding a new rule at the Brushy Hill Preserve that I was just made aware of in the past week. So first of all, I'd like to preface this by saying that I really do appreciate the Friends. I know they get a lot of warmth and love here from council, and I think they do from the entire town. The 1,400 hours of volunteer work that they showed in their presentation is indicative of really, this is not a small scale operation out there. And I personally, I spend a lot of time at Brushy Hill, and I do appreciate the fact that there's not multi-floor rows to stumble through and so forth when I'm there. So the second thing I need to sort of preface with here is, to be fair, I was only made aware of this very recently, and because the process, which I'm basically commenting on, was opaque, I really don't have an understanding of what was discussed, how things happened. All I saw was the end result, which was when I went to the park and saw a new rule placard where rule number 1 was stay on the trails. And sort of ancillary to that, doesn't really affect me, or hasn't affected me in the past, but it also removed the traditional use of mushroom gathering at the preserve. So I'll kind of say what my presumptions are. If they're wrong, then perhaps my conclusions are wrong as well. So just to be clear, in my digging into this in the past couple of days, what I learned was that the memorandum of understanding, which the council had approved with Friends of Brushy Hill a year or two ago, was recently modified, excuse me, to include the adding of one rule and the dropping of the other rule. The other changes seem to be editorial. This was done in June of this past year, and it had the city manager's signature on it, and 2 members of the Friends. I presume, I don't understand how government works, so maybe the intent of council was to allow the city manager to make periodic updates and approvals and so forth to that. So I can't say whether it's legal or against anybody's rules or not, but as a citizen of the city, I feel there's an issue with governance in this case. This appears to have been a change that significantly impacts potentially the entire population, or at least the population part of town that uses Brushy Hill, in ways that perhaps the Friends can't quantify and nobody can quantify. I mean, as somebody raised, there's not even usage data to go with this. So as a governance issue, my primary concern with this is that a special interest group, the Friends of Brushy Hills, and they are special interests, they're certainly tilted towards having a certain value structure regarding what's appropriate and not appropriate at Brushy Hills. And they're free to hold that perspective. But my point is that there are other people in the city, in the area, that may have different perspectives on what's important and what's not important. And to simply, in a completely opaque way, change that rule with no public input seems wrong to me. And doesn't really consider the negative consequences. I mean, there's potentially education groups, recreational geologists. There's all kinds of reasons why somebody might not want to be on the trails. And I don't think that was considered. So what I'd like to see in terms of a governance question would be these kinds of changes in the future be subject to at least perhaps a public comment period. That, you know, there'd be a publication of, hey, we're intending to change the rules at Brushy. If you're a, you know, regular user out there and you might be affected by this change, please let council or public works or parks and recs or whoever, you know, wants to be the conduit for that, to know what those impacts are. I certainly don't feel like I had an opportunity to comment on it. And it's an important thing for me personally, which I'll get to in a moment. I also believe, and I'm probably standing on shakier ground here as I'm not a PhD naturalist or anything else, but I have spent a lot of time dealing with environmental impact of my particular sport. And I don't think the science supports the conclusion of the Friends in this case, because in effect, they don't really know that there's any damage happening. And if there is spread of invasives, so this is my presumption, that they put this rule in place to prevent damage to the forest floor, to prevent spread of invasives, to prevent creation of communal trails, the usual reasons why people want to keep people on trails. I think in this case, they're changing the only thing that they can change, which is limiting people to trails. They can't keep the squirrels from carrying seeds around. They can't keep the birds from eating the seeds and pooping them all over the place. They can't keep the deer from eating what they eat and not eat, and all the other reasons that invasives are spread. Now, it is true that you'll often hear human beings are dangerous to woods because they spread invasives. But in most cases, when people are talking about that, they're talking about the introduction of invasives into areas where they had not previously been. So say I go hiking in the national forest one day, then I go hiking to Brushy Hills the next, I may be carrying invasive seeds on my boots and my clothes that I didn't wash since I went hiking the previous day. And now I'm introducing a potential invasive. But the spread of most of the invasives are through things like water, flooding, birds, deer, rabbits, squirrels, and so forth. Given the level, excuse me, I need a drink of water. Given the level of potential activity, I personally don't believe that limiting people to the trails here will address the issue that it's intended to address. And then on top of that, not only does the science really support it, but the negative consequences haven't really been looked at. So, you know, what are we talking about? Well, you know, there are people that maybe now will not go to Brushy Hill. They won't see the value of it, and you're going to see diminished public support for Brushy Hill. I mean, it's a political issue. You want to keep it, you want to put money into it, all these kinds of things. You're going to need political support. If the only people that go there are people that are like naturalists and hikers that want to stay on trails, then maybe you've left out a significant part of your population that you might not want to throw out. There's
Why do you,
future.
why do you want to leave the trail? Sorry to interrupt, but we usually only give 3 minutes. I'm over here.
Okay.
I'm over here. We usually only give 3 minutes. So I
Right,
just want to make
wait.
sure before you get cut off that we get to the point. Why do you want to leave the trail? What I understand the process. You're upset with that, but what are you looking for?
And Fred, before you answer that, thank you for interjecting, Leslie. I apologize, my error with one speaker giving greater latitude for presentation this evening. But one of the things that I advocate day in and day out is working with your neighbors. I'm not sure if you've approached the Friends of Brushy Hill to ask them why they pursued and posted the new sign and worked through that. Has that step been approached? The Friends of Brushy Hill have
prior to the-
organized meetings.
They do, and prior to the meeting, I can document in many cases where I've tried to work with the Friends of Brushy Hill and have not really had any operations.
Sure,
That's part of it. In the meantime, I did reach out to one person that's there. They weren't aware that the thing was going up, so I'm not sure that everybody within the steering committee even knew about this. So.
Yeah, and I would point out it's a memorandum of understanding. It's not a legislative act, and no one's breaking laws if they step off the and do some mushroom searching or exploration from that standpoint. But
okay,
to Leslie's question, what's your point?
Okay, well, okay, so the 3 minute thing, I wasn't sure when at this point in the meeting I was going to have an opportunity to comment, whether it was back when the presentation happened or in the public comments. So I wasn't aware of the 3 minutes. So I'll try to get to the point. So I personally have an interest in this because as a stakeholder, because I am interested in the activity of orienteering. And orienteering, if nobody knows what that is basically fun with maps. You get a map, you go out, you can do all kinds of things, find things, find moving things. You can do it on foot, horse, bike, scuba gear. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. You can do it in the woods, you can do it in cities and so forth. But Brushy Hill is a prime, largely due to the work of the Friends, is a tremendous place for beginner to intermediate level orienteering. And I would like to be able to work with the schools, RARO, which I've already talked to, about possibly doing orienteering at Brushy Hills. Once this rule goes in place, it's going to be very hard to change. All the potential uses of the forest outside of staying on the trails, I think, will be lost.
Very good.
So sorry, I ran.
No.
Okay.
Glad to have the understanding and appreciate the background. As I say, I'm generally optimistic that neighbors can sit down and talk about ways to compromise or work collaboratively. This preserve that the city owns is not a large budget item. You mentioned the political piece of it, but I'd ask if council members have questions or and I'll tell you, this is also uncharacteristic. We generally don't engage with folks that are presenting to us, but
I'm an uncharacteristic guy. So.
Yeah. I'd like just one clarification, and the Friends can help on this. So the verbiage that we're talking about is about staying on the trails. Yes. Does the new information say you must stay on the trail, or does it say please stay on the trail, or if you can?
Well, I believe it says please stay on the trail, but it's a big placard, and the very biggest, more than twice the size of every other word, is rules. Number 1, please stay on the trail.
Yeah. Okay, that's helpful.
The memorandum of understanding with the city and Friends was approved originally by city council, and you're correct, the city staff has responsibility for working with them. And unless council has an objection, I would say the city manager will be in touch to address your concerns and navigate the next steps of how to work collaboratively and see where we go from here.
Okay.
Mr. Alligood.
I have a comment. One of the points that Mr. Reed is raising is the process for changing rules or for establishing rules in the first place. And his observation that the process seemed opaque to him and was opaque, I think has merit. And I would suggest that if there is a rule change, that at least be the proposed rule change be published ahead of time to allow comment from people that have an interest in it prior to its adoption. At least give an open period for public comment rather than not. And I think that's just a slight adjustment to make and not hard to accomplish. And it will allow people such as Mr. Reed, who has possibly a differing interest and a different perspective on the proposed rules, to at least have a say.
This is obviously a very unique circumstance. I don't think that we need to advertise a rule change at a city pool. I don't think we need to advertise a rule change at Kids Place. I think this is unique. I think that hopefully this can be understood why the change was made in this conversation that the mayor's asking to occur, asking us to all of a sudden advertise. I'm not sure what that could look like. But I think this is a unique circumstance, and I don't know if we really need to change personally city policy for all of those other entities. Skate park, where we might say dawn to dusk, we might put a time. Do we need to advertise that rule? No, it's a change. We ask you to please follow the rules. So I don't want to make this bigger than it is. I think this can be solved. I learned a lot today. I learned a lot from the presentation. It's a treasure, Brushy Hills. I learned a lot about what you've shared, and I thank you for bringing this to our attention. Quite frankly, not on my radar. Honestly, I think of all the trails around here, the Appalachian Trail, you stay on the trail. Chessie Trail, please stay on the trail. VMI owns it. Woods Creek Trail, please stay on the trail. To a lot of people, staying on the trail is a safety issue. It's a respect issue. And it's a nature issue. But what you're sharing is something different. And that's really educational to me. So I appreciate that, but this is unique. Please handle this, Jim. We appreciate all you do as city manager. I don't think you need to deal with it at the city council level, respectfully.
Right. I would just add that you are following the proper channels from the standpoint of we are a body that meets the first and third Thursdays of every month. We welcome our friends and our neighbors to come and share with us things that are of concern. We welcome praise. Thank you for sharing both. And, it's a great opportunity to have a discussion. But to beat the drum a little bit more, starting with the folks that there's the initial conflict or differing opinions is a great place to start. And then up the food chain to the city manager and working through. If you don't find a solution to the questions that you have or a reasonable conclusion, city council is certainly the next step for us to look at and see if there's meaningful policy or code that we should change. And you've heard the comments this evening, so we are all better educated on orienteering, and glad that you've been with us this evening, and look forward to the city manager reaching out and vetting and working through the issues that you've raised.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to council this evening? Hearing none, next item is consent agenda. You have the items there before you. Mr. Smith?
One, I guess, clarification in the application from Main Street to close Main Street.
Yes.
There's an item that says waiver of a peddler's fee.
Yes.
There will be no peddlers.
Fair enough.
So the fee doesn't need to be waived.
Or if it's waived, there are no peddlers.
Free information.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second and ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Ms. Strong.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business, update on 201 North Randolph Street. And I'll say, Jim and Fred, if y'all want to take it outside or so that's all right. The update on 201 North Randolph Street, I will offer while having lunch with city manager today, had communications with Chris Leslie, who is the contractor organized. He was trying to move equipment in this past Monday and begin work this week. And there were difficulties with navigating to get to that spot. I'm not sure exactly what they were. He's working with the McClung outfit to move in and may need a escort because of the narrow streets, but and the big machines that he's bringing in, but has the information from the of the city manager and the chief of police if there's an escort that's necessary or to clear a path to get the equipment to the site potentially this Saturday. And then they would begin work on Monday. But I think as the city manager reported in the past, there's a silt fence that's been established to begin the deconstruction, if you will. And anything to add, Jim, or? Okay. And then item 11.2, consideration and adoption of resolution to dissolve the VASAP program.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is also a continuation of an item you've seen before. Of course, there's a resolution that's been drafted and has been amended that's before you. This item has been taken up by several other of the localities who've been served by this program. As I noted before, we do not have staff. The state has intended that the program and several other programs throughout the state like this should be folded into one because the primary source of funding comes from the state. At this point, for the last several months, the state has been administering the program, providing the services. There have been no substantial changes. I think I was asked, will there be changes in the future? Clearly, if we ran the program, there'd be changes. If the state runs the program, there'll be changes. I can't tell you what those changes would be. At this point in time, no, there's really no option really for us to run the program for ourselves. I mean, that would be the only option to run it for ourselves. The other localities have dropped out.
Have all the other localities dropped out?
The majority have already passed the resolutions.
The other question I had is, my understanding is the programming would move to Roanoke, whereas it was in Stanton before.
Some aspects of it would, yes.
Okay.
Not entirety.
When it was as it currently is, if that makes sense, were there any programs that were directly taking place in Lexington?
No.
Okay.
So are you looking for a motion to approve the resolution that was
Yes.
provided to us?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of the Lexington City Council to authorize the dissolution of the Valley Alcohol Safety Action Program.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Ms. Strong.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. Amazing the things we're destructing today. Just kidding. Next item is reports and commissions. Blue Ridge Resource Authority, Mr. Smith.
No report.
Thank you, sir. Main Street, Lexington, Mr. Smith.
A record crowd of almost 3,000 people attended MSL's annual candlelight processional on Friday, November 24th. The next day, Small Business Saturday, the Grinch visited our downtown and caused quite a bit of mischief. The weather was in our favor on Friday, December 1st, as the rain stopped just before the parade stepped off at 6 p.m. There were 72 entries this year with over 100 vehicles. The next morning, Main Street Lexington saw the biggest group of Jingle Bell runners to date, over 350 entries for our 10th annual event. Tomorrow night, December 8th, shops will be open until 7 p.m. while the Dickens Carolers will stroll downtown from 5:30 to 6:30. Main Street Lexington's last holiday event for the season will be next Friday, the 15th. Folks will have a chance to tour historic downtown churches during the holiday church open house from 4 to 6 p.m. Details are on the Main Street Lexington website.
Chuck, what's the date of the church walk?
15th.
15th. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Smith about Main Street Lexington? Ms. Alexander?
I just have one. Does MSL announce who the winners are for the bands and
From the
floats?
Christmas parade?
Yeah, for the parade.
I'll defer to Mr. Betts.
I was a judge. So there was 3 judges. We judged them. I don't know if it's been announced
No,
yet,
they do
but
it, they do it different.
so I won't say anything, but we've scored them. And there should be some results on who wins. There's different categories. There's like best marching band, there's best float, best performance. So there's multiple opportunities for folks to or for different groups to win some recognition. And I believe they have some type of like event for the winners where there'll be refreshments served. So nice way to celebrate a win.
Interesting.
I'll check on that and report back to council.
Thank you.
A nice treat. Any other questions for Mr. Smith? Planning Commission, Ms. Strong.
No report.
Regional Tourism Board, Mr. Betts.
I'll try to be as quick as possible. The Rockbridge Regional Tourism Board has awarded $10,000 to 8 local event planners for round 6 of the Tourism Event Sponsorship Program. These events are all being held between January 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2024. The awards were made based upon the strength of the application, the potential to attract out-of-town visitors, and the alignment with regional tourism goals. The awards were made as follows: Maury River Fiddlers Convention, $2,125. Rockbridge Bull and Oyster Festival, $2,125. Artapalooza, $2,000. Driving for Veterans Golf Benefit, $1,000. East Coast Elite Track and Field, $750. Rockbridge Ballet Presents The Little Mermaid, $750. Kids Fishing Day at Natural Bridge State Park, $750. And Lexington Rockbridge Juneteenth Celebration, $500.
All your report.
That's my whole report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Betts?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
All these, the awards, and if they involve events, are those events publicized on the tourism websites or whatever?
So I don't know if this is going to answer your question exactly, but part of the application is that they publicize tourism on their materials. I can get back to you on will tourism publicize their events. I will look into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would just chime in. I think that they may be things going on listed on the tourism site. They're not promoted per se,
but they are listed.
They're on the calendar.
They're on the calendar.
On the-
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that would be the answer there.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. Raro, Mr. Ziegler.
The RARO Board of Directors met last night for just over 4 hours. And it was a work session / retreat / our regular meeting. We talked about the programs and growth opportunities. We talked about facilities and what we may need in the future. We talked about staffing. So it was actually really helpful that our board got together and was able to give that much time to this important organization. And we got a lot done last night. It was very helpful. We also, of course, had our regular meeting, and I just wanted to quickly share some quick data with you. We have about 255 boys signed up for basketball this winter. We have about 126 girls signed up for basketball, and we have 39 wrestlers signed up. Those numbers are very, very strong, very, very strong. And I just want to keep it in front of you. I'm going to give you the quick tally of all the gyms that we use in Lexington and Rockbridge County that our staff is scheduling, and we appreciate Rockbridge County Schools allowing us access to their gyms. And of course, Lexington City Schools allows us access to their gyms. And Buena Vista allows us access to the Ramsey Center. But here we go. Maury River Middle School, both gyms are used at least 4 or 5 days a week. Lilburn Downing Middle School, their gym is used. Central Elementary School, Fairfield, Natural Bridge, Mountain View, Waddell, Rivermont allows us to use pickleball. And then, of course, I said the Ramsey Center. So right there is numerous indoor facilities in Rockbridge County and Lexington. And we're so appreciative to the county schools for making that happen. And of course, Lexington City Schools. Our kids get a lot of benefit out of that, and so do our adults. So thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. Any questions for Mr. Ziegler? Mr. Alligood.
Did you all discuss orienteering?
We did. Quite honestly, we had so much success last year. I've shared with you with like the paddling, kayaking, paddling, and we tried to do hiking, backpacking a little bit. I mean, orienteering a little bit last year. We didn't get the numbers, but we're going to try it again, something like that. Right now, we are stretched thin a little bit on our staff. We are offering more and more programs, and our executive director had taken on the adult programs and kind of like the summer programs a little bit. We're trying not to stretch anyone too thin. And so we're looking at who we can partner with if we continue to do these maybe not where it's a multi-month program, but it's a short program like orienteering or hiking, getting outdoors. So I think we're going to make another foray into that this coming summer or late summer. But as a board, we have had the mentality of do more. And we want to respect our staff. When they put out last night at our retreat, what all they've added, who all we are serving even more and more, we got to be fair to our staff. And so what we add, we want to make sure that we're staffed right to do it, or we're asking someone from the community to help us do it. Because we're not with our full-time staff able to do everything. We depend on folks in the community to help us with cheer, to help us with other things that our staff is not able to do. And that could be one of the situations that we need help on some of those summer programs.
So I thought that the gentleman we heard from.
He mentioned that he had talks with Rara.
Just talks.
Yeah, I'm not going to oversell it. We have talks with numerous organizations or numerous individuals to see where they might be able to help us in our robust offerings. Whereas just a couple of years ago, we weren't doing anything with adults. And now we're trying to. We weren't doing pickleball a few years ago. We're talking about flag football. We're talking about kickball. We're talking about all these things. So we do have conversations with lots of folks, lots of groups to say, can you help us with self-defense? Can you help us with this kind of program? So quite honestly, in full disclosure, that's what we're doing. We spread a wide web, see if who can help us, see if there's a need for that program. And so that's what our staff does.
And would that
maybe it'll work out?
It might work out.
And would some of this help be volunteer help?
Yes. And quite frankly, we get some volunteer help as it is. And then the help that we compensate people for, it's kind of like city council. They're volunteering their time. They are doing it out of the goodness of their hearts for the kids. We give them something, but they give us way more than we can possibly give them back. Fact.
It's abundantly clear Chad comes from a teaching background. Add more, do more with less. So grateful for his leadership and the direction that Raro has embarked upon, and the future is very positive from that standpoint. Any other questions for Mr. Ziegler? Hearing none. Threshold, Ms. Alexander.
Yes, Threshold met on Wednesday, November 29th. And we talked mainly about homelessness in this community. We were reminded that the nearest homeless shelters are in Roanoke and Stanton. RARA does encourage individuals seeking shelter to go to those so as to become eligible for additional services that they may offer, and will provide vouchers for transportation or gas to get there. However, there are few people who will accept that offer because they don't want to be in the shelter system. And another option that people can go to is a warm shelter in Waynesboro, which is a partnership of several churches. RARA has a voucher system for emergency overnight stays at partnering local hotels, but hotel approvals in the Rockbridge County for Rockbridge County residents have recently plummeted, and that's because of issues that the hotels have had with damage to their property from Rockbridge County residents who've been staying in those hotels. Short of establishing a local shelter, it was explained that possibly having one would be unrealistic, and threw it out to the rest of the members there to suggest other options. Some in attendance, as well as city staff, shared various experiences had recently with local interactions with individuals living out of their cars who had been confronted by law enforcement, and they were asked to move from where they were parked. There was extended discussion about the possibility of a designated parking area available to people in these circumstances, such as a program in Seattle, Washington, that was mentioned back in October, or possibly a warm shelter program similar to the one in Waynesboro. There was some caution that a designated parking program, no matter where it was located, would also require zoning actions. It was suggested that public support would likely require significant community education as to even the existence of a local need. In following up to the consideration of possible sites for designated parking and how to approach implementing such a program, it was offered to at least start a subcommittee of Threshold to develop a position paper based on models used in other programs in other municipalities, and staff offered to help provide support in that endeavor. Also, it was reported that the city had been awarded the planning grant, and that Arnie Glazer would attend the first planning meeting on December 13th, and that the regional housing study that we've talked about for a long time now, we're still expecting that to be completed by late spring or early summer. We reviewed the punch list for a property here in town that had been had requested assistance with some repairs, and some of them have been done, but Mission Next Door has pledged to schedule those repairs to get that project completed and out of the way. But they would have to look at their more pressing safety issues and then schedule this particular residence. We were asked about the $2,000 that we have allocated to Threshold that we still have. And we were asked if we could possibly make a donation to Mission Next Door, because they do a lot of projects similar to what we were expected to do in our community program. So we decided to take $500 of the $2,000 balance to direct that to Mission Next Door. And then as we find that there are other small projects that we may have, then we'll use the balance for that, as well as still consider continuing to support Mission Next Door. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. Any questions for Ms. Alexander? Terrific.
Nick, do you have anything?
I think you covered everything very well. It's a very thorough report.
Yeah, I would just make one observation. I'm not sure what the genesis was with the homeless circumstances. It seems a little out of the scope of Threshold. I hope that Threshold will stay somewhat laser focused on the housing study and the housing inventory and the housing, providing housing, getting housing for folks. It's obviously an element, but
I think we do have a focus on housing for sure,
yeah.
But unfortunately, when people can't afford houses, they need places to go.
Right.
And that's, I think, how this topic came up, and I think it is a relevant topic. But I understand where you're coming from too.
There are many facets to what a home looks like. And there are so many people in our community who are couch surfing, and that is also considered homelessness. So they don't necessarily have to also be living out of a car on our parking lots or whatever, but there are many different ways of defining homelessness. And when people don't have the opportunity to rent anywhere because they're on fields or they have various circumstances that don't allow them to get housing, they're on the street. And it is a concern, I think, in this community that it is part of our whole homeless package. And it is also part of our study that's being done. It's a big part of it.
Right.
So
Don't discount it at all. That's certainly not the message, but I've been really excited about the strides that Threshold's taken in the past several months in working towards finding and creating housing. It eliminates that other problem. And
I think once we get, I think we do want to continue to work on this, but I think when we get that back to some of these studies on housing, that'll kind of give us some of the data points we need to kind of, move into some of the more, I guess, traditional things Threshold has done.
Terrific. Good. Mr. Alligood, Memorial Service Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The MSA did have the meeting this past Tuesday to hear from the consultants on the wastewater plant estimates at this time. And it was broken into two parts. And the first part was estimated at 25 million, and the other part was 40 million. And so when you add that to the water treatment, which was hanging around 30 million, so you add all those up, there's your 90 million. And the projects haven't been defined yet in terms of how they're going to be scheduled. They will be scheduled on increments of 5 years increments. You have a 5-year window, a 10-year window, and a 15-year window. And the next step is to do the engineering specifically for those projects and develop a timeline. Nothing's been approved. And so the localities will be consulted to make sure that funding is there and it's the right way to proceed. But we made a big step in notifying and informing, MSA did, all the localities about the size, the scope of the project and the overall magnitude. And so the next steps are to do the engineering for the different steps. And so we have another we have a board meeting scheduled, a regular board meeting for next Tuesday in this room at 5 p.m. And clearly that'll be discussed as well here. End of report.
I have a question.
All right.
You mentioned the wastewater treatment plant. There was the first part is 25 million.
Right.
The second part is 40 million. What's the first part and what's the second part?
Yeah, the first part is the actual replacement and repair of equipment that's falling down.
Deferred maintenance.
Deferred maintenance was the thing there. And the consultant showed pictures of spalling concrete, large concrete structures. The second part is going to be more a combination of localities, expenditures for infrastructure leading into the MSA plant. That the cost has to be borne somewhere. And if localities don't do it, then it's incumbent on the MSA to do it at the plant, to spend the money at the plant to handle the capacities that are forecast. The size of the engineering, the size of the capacity size for the plant is viewed as not enough to meet the needs, the projected needs for the growth of Lexington and Rockbridge County at this time. So there will be an increase in the capacities as part of the construction project, but that's the reason that it was discussed in those two phases there.
Second was I&I, $40,000 was I&I and non-domestic waste. So having the higher BOD and suspended solids loads and trying to reduce those through pretreatment.
Right.
So
And
supposedly if we implement some of these I&I project, enough I&I, which it takes a lot of I&I projects to get to anywhere to make a difference. And we can do some pretreatment of the domestic or have the sources do to pretreatment, we can reduce that 40 million. And so I hope MSA is focusing on that as well as getting that $40 million number down.
right. And the city is already spending and has already spent I&I repair money in there. I think we'll be spending more, but that's anything. The report indicated, the consultant indicated, anything you can do to reduce capacity reduces your long-term cost.
Does Rockbridge have a pretreatment plan? Do we, it's like one thing that was brought up, I guess maybe after the meeting, like one of the folks mentioned, was maybe the need for a pretreatment plan. Do we have, I would assume that we don't. Does
And
Rockbridge does not either. Right. So is that something that would kind of be worked on at the MSA level and then brought back to us for consideration, or no? Okay.
I think it's going to be a combination of cooperation, items of cooperation, because where the pretreatment is going to be needed are going to be probably businesses in Lexington and businesses in Rockbridge County, and businesses are subject to rules not from MSA in terms of how they do business, but there has to be cooperation because what businesses are producing waste-wise that go to the plant there obviously has to be considered for treatment. There was one plant in particular in Rockbridge County that was loading the MSA system that was killing the bugs. And this has been a while back, and that problem was addressed. And that particular business was in effect not pre-treating. They were relying on MSA's equipment to do all that pre-treating, and it was still killing the bugs in there. And so it was, so that got handled, and that particular waste stream is now going elsewhere for pre-treatment and then being fed into another plant, going to another plant that had pre-treatment already. So it was a matter of working that out. So what Mr. Combs and the consultant was talking about with regard to pre-treatment is that there'll be, say, certain businesses that will have a waste stream that will require pre-treatment so as to not adversely affect the workings of the MSA waste treatment system there. And so we don't know what those are yet. And so testing is going to be part of the program. And so those things will be identified as time happens there. Thank you.
What's the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant now? 4 million gallons a day?
That's right.
And that's not sufficient capacity for projected growth.
Right.
Okay. So will that capacity of wastewater treatment dictate the capacity of the raw water? Well, I guess it won't affect our raw water. It'll affect the county's raw water intake.
It wasn't the raw water, it was the wastewater.
Right. But if we're going to upgrade our wastewater capacity to 4+ whatever it is million gallons a day, our wastewater volume right now as a city is fairly consistent. All the growth for wastewater increase is going to come from the county, right?
Right. And we've got this I and I, everybody has this I and I problem.
But the wastewater, I guess what I'm asking is, will the wastewater treatment capacity increase dictate what the raw water intake capacity permit is going to be? Because that's been part of the water treatment plant discussion on whether 4 million gallons a day, which the water treatment plant has the permit for, we're actually just drawing 2 million
or less.
And I asked the question, I think a couple months ago, what is the permit capacity going to be for the raw water intake? And
it has not been determined.
Right. But so that leads to the question, is the wastewater capacity increase going to dictate what the raw water capacity permit is going to be?
I don't think they're that closely connected. The wastewater, in terms of how the applications go, sure, the more water you get from the raw water plant going through the system there, has to come out somewhere.
Yeah.
And you've got stormwater, an issue with stormwater, which loads the plant. And one of the presentations, one of the slides that everyone saw at the presentation last Tuesday night was a graph showing the flows going into the plant regularly peaking. And it was every rainfall.
Well, yeah.
Is what it was. And so there was a blue line on the map that on the graph that showed we were pretty much operating at the capacity of the wastewater plant now. And that every time something happened, it was always in excess. It always went above it. And so the plant doesn't have the capacity now to effectively treat those overages.
Okay.
And then when you combine that with the projected growth, that's the justification for increasing the capacity when all this engineering work and construction work is going to happen, so that we're not choking our system in terms of limiting growth. And it's only money.
And I would say take that question, Mr. Smith's question, to your board meeting on Tuesday to get that confirmation. And
combination.
yes, big numbers and problems. Again, having a healthy, effective water system is critical for all of our communities. So thank you for the update. And I know if you have time and want to seek out Jordan, he can take you deep into the weeds on that.
If I may, before we move on from boards and commissions, I have an answer for Marilyn. Check social media tomorrow. And related to boards and commissions, I think an invite was sent to you all from the Friends of Natural Bridge about our meeting on Monday. I've heard from some, but not all. If you can RSVP, whether or not you'll be attending, and two, if you'll be up for enjoying a free carriage ride. You will all be fed and watered if you RSVP. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next item on the agenda is Mayor's Report. For brevity, have 3 items. One, in case you were not aware, Chick-fil-A opened this morning at 6:30 a.m. So congratulations to Stephen Bruner, who's our new operator, and this past summer moved his family to the Lexington area, and is welcoming all hungry people.
If they're on DoorDash.
I understand they are. I have 2 items for your consideration. Was contacted by Rockbridge Area Community Services Board. Len Denicola, who's been serving, his term is set to expire December 31st. And Len is willing to serve another term, which would end December 31st, 2026. And I offer that for council's consideration. And along the same lines, the tree board, Tony Williams, I had a lovely conversation with. She is eager to participate and fill the good role that Betty Beazle served for many years. And she would be fulfilling the unfinished term of Betty that is set to expire June 30 of 2024. And if you'd like to take those together, I would welcome a motion to do so.
I would move to appoint the Tony Williams and
Len Denicola.
Lynn Denicola to those two positions there, the community services and retrieval.
Second.
Have a motion, a second, any discussion? Hearing none, we ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
Next item, city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few updates from planning and development. The Architectural Review Board met twice recently and approved 4 certificates of appropriateness. The building official issued 2 permits in the downtown historic district. And this activity over the course of this year, 2023, has led to $59,351,000 of improvements for construction in the city, compared to $19,309,000 in 2022. Of course, as mentioned by Mr. Smith earlier, the vast majority of that will not pay taxes. Nonetheless, there's been a lot of growth in this community in this current calendar year. Our staff and of course boards and commissions work hard to allow this to happen and spend the time to review this growth, giving out the appropriate permits, reviews, inspections, etc. Kudos to City Clerk Janie Hostetter. She spent several hours in the past week tracking down information for a student at Washington and Lee who was doing some research on the Stonewall Jackson Cemetery renaming and how that worked during that time period, what City Council did, the actions of the City Council and the community to achieve that. And I guess it's a research paper that she has been putting together. So Janie spent a lot of time researching that period herself and providing information to this young woman. A few pieces of updates from the police department. Our sworn department completed their annual firearms training recently. Sheriff Funkhauser, along with Washington Lee Public Service Director, Mr. Van Cleef, and Chief Green, held an after-action review of the recent threat that occurred at Washington and Lee. The sheriff and chief then also met with the Washington and Lee security consultants to review potential changes to campus security. Staff provided traffic control and security for the annual downtown Christmas parade and the Jingle Bell 5K run. The department held a community meeting to discuss parking concerns in the various Diamond Hill neighborhoods, and that was last night. Cadet Nicely began training with Sergeant Lombardi and Corporal Dreelan to assist the department in parking enforcement citywide. So we'll have some additional support there, completely unrelated to the meeting last night. That's been in the works for some time. It will obviously help us across the board to have somebody else watching out on the streets, so to speak. Our newly certified officer, Stephen Stewart, was sworn in this past week. And that's all in the police department. The fire department update, the department responded to a fire at Modine on Collierstown Road that involved propane from piping and the nearby equipment box that were put in flames. The piping led directly to an 18,000 gallon above ground propane tank. Department personnel with other Rockbridge County units exercised appropriate levels of caution and safely extinguished the flames with no injury or further damage. To stop the flow of gas to the area where the fire occurred, Lieutenant Clemmer had to go under the 18,000 gallon tank, find the valve mechanism and turn it off while the gas was burning nearby. So I give him a great deal of credit for that, even though he wasn't in the flames. It was obviously a situation that would cause concern for any of us, I'm sure. The department hosted regional passenger vehicle training, extrication training. And of course, the department participated in the downtown Christmas parade recently. And that is all I have, Mr. Mayor. Questions from anyone?
Thank you, Jim. Any questions from council for the city manager? Hearing none. City attorney, Mike, any words of wisdom?
No, I think that both Jeremy and I were blessed today and in that he's seeing his daughter graduate, off to become a nurse practitioner. And I had the opportunity to spend some time with you. I hope that I have the opportunity to do so again.
Fantastic. Thank you. Glad you're with us. New business, consideration of resolution to appoint signatories to the Oak Grove Cemetery Trust Fund. Ms. Bell.
Hello again. So historically, the authorized representatives on the cemetery account at Truist have been the city manager and the finance director. Tonight, I am requesting that council approve the included resolution replacing Jake Adams' name with mine.
I make a motion. Can I do it?
Please.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 2023-12, updating the signatory for the cemetery fund.
I'll second it.
Have a motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Ms. Strawn,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mr. Alligood.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. I'm not aware of any other business to come before us this evening. I would just applaud our community on having three terrific school board applicants who represented themselves and our community very, very well. Thank you, Mike, for being with us. And Janie, thank you for the holiday treats at our stations. And unless there's any other business to come before council, we will stand adjourned. Have a great evening. And don't forget to RSVP to